A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Orlando Pirates versus Berkane, as I have a post-match analysis of the Caf Confederations Cup final, which ended 1-1 after extra time and 5-4 on penalties to Berkane. So, Berkane then are the champions of the Caf Confederations Cup. So, when you have a look at it then, the blue team will represent Orlando Pirates and then the red team will represent Berkane. So, when you have a look at it then, coming up into this encounter, Orlando Pirates did line up then in a 4-2-3-1. So, when you have a look at it then, in goals, they did start with Richard Ofori. At left back, they started with Innocent Mayela. As the left-sided centre-back, Happy Jele. As the right-sided centre-back, they started with Olisanda. At right back, they started with Bandile Shandu. Within the heart of midfield, they went with Mutswari and Musele. And then they started with Kabelo Dlamini, Hoto off the left, and then Timingosi LORCH off the right. And then up front, they started with Pepra. So when you have a look then at this Orlando Pirates side, throughout the game, I would say then that they were more in control, as they did keep more possession. They created so many chances. But even then, when they were creating those chances, they just didn't have the quality within the final third to finish off those chances. So when you do have a look at it then, it was Pepra, you had Hoto, you had LORCH, and then you had Dlamini. So a lot of the chances that Orlando Pirates were creating, they just couldn't convert. And when you look at Hoto, for example, on the night, this is a player then who should have scored a hat-trick. And a player then was predominantly coming off the left-hand side, but he just didn't have the quality to put away those chances. So with the Orlando Pirates then, I would say that they were more dominant, they had more control of the game, but they just couldn't take their chances and they just couldn't score those goals. Until then, they did go then to the extra time, where then in the dying minutes of extra time, that is when LORCH manages to pull a goal back to make it 1-1 and take them to penalties. With LORCH then, he does get that ball by the edge of the box, and it is somewhat of a pass, and he sort of trips over and he's trying to play a pass, and then that goes in. So it was a very, very bizarre goal. And when you do have a look at it then, with Orlando Pirates then, when they did go to the penalties, it was LORCH then who missed his penalty and everybody else converted. And yeah, that's how Orlando Pirates fed out. I would say that Orlando Pirates should have won this game. This is a game that Orlando Pirates should have buried within the first half, because the amount of chances that Hoto got, and Orlando Pirates as well, they should have scored this game. Orlando Pirates should have won this game at least by 3 goals, if not 4, because they created so many chances. They had so many chances to ensure that they could win this game within the 90 minutes. But Orlando Pirates just couldn't make it count. And when you look at Orlando Pirates, then the player that stood out for me was Olisanda. I think his defensive display on the night was very, very impressive. And I think then he was the man of the match, especially considering then how he was able to ensure that he defends his box very, very well. And then also when you look at the fact that he was key whenever then Orlando Pirates were looking to facilitate those build-ups, and when they were looking then to ensure that they could work that ball from build-up phase into consolidation phase. Also then very key when it came to playing then those long passes as well. That is something that he was also doing very well. But overall, I think Olisanda had a very, very good performance, as he was then playing at home, because the match was played then in Nigeria. Overall then, when you have a look at Orlando Pirates, I just think that they were very poor within the final third. At times, their final pass was also very, very poor. You know, I just think that if Orlando Pirates were more clinical on the day, they could have wrapped up the game within the first half. Especially then when you look at Hoto, who had many chances. And even coming off the bench, the changes that they made, they couldn't really change the game and affect the game. And then when you move on then, right along, and you do have a look at Berkane. So when you have a look at Berkane coming up into this encounter, then they did line up in a 4-3-3. So when you have a look at it then, in goals, they did start with Agbi at right back. they went with Buddy. As the right-sided centre-back, they went with Dayo. Left-sided centre-back, Mokadem. At left-back, Musawi. Within the heart of midfield, they started with Naji. They started with Halali. And then they started with Obila. And then the three up front, off the right-hand side, they started with Al-Fahil. Up front, they went with Al-Bari. And then they went with Lukombi. So when you do have a look then at this Berkane side, yeah, I just think this was a very poor performance, you know, by them. And I think that they were very lethargic. And I also think that they were very, very flat. They just couldn't grow into the game, especially then when you consider that their most dangerous players then in Al-Fahil and Lukombi as well. These were the players then who promised to be threatening, but on the night, they just weren't threatening enough. They couldn't create clear-cut chances for their team. And I would say then it was a very disappointing performance by this Berkane side, as I felt that Orlando Pirates could have easily won the game. And then when you do look at them, then they do manage then to get the game to extra time. And when they do get the game to extra time, it is 0-0. However, then they do manage to win a penalty, and Al-Fahil does manage to put that penalty away. And then when you look at the rest of extra time, they do try and manage the game. But yeah, I just think that lapse of concentration within the dying minutes, where then that bizarre goal from LORCH goes in, yeah, that happens. It goes 1-1, and then they go to the penalties. And then within the penalties, they were able then to convert their chances. So it does end then 5-4 after extra time, and 5-4 on penalties after 1-1 after extra time played. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was then the Caf Confederations Cup final, which was contested then in Nigeria. So it is Florent Ibenge then who does walk away victorious, as he does lift the Caf Confederations Cup. So when you have a look at it then, after extra time, when you do have a look at it, it is 1-1, but on penalties, it does end 5-4 in favor of Berkane. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Berkane are the winners then of the Caf Confederations Cup final. So, thank you very much for tuning in to another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.